Okay, I wanted to make a probably long video. This is a very spur of the moment video about how the nevernerf crowd has ruined Destiny and they're idiots, basically. Oh boy, let me turn my fan on. Okay, what prompted this is there's a certain crowd in the game of Destiny that I call the nevernerf crowd, and they don't want nerfs ever, or so they claim, because we'll get to the fact they're huge hypocrites about it. And there are no really nevernerf people, okay? It's like almost anything else in life, it's full of absolute hypocrisy. The nevernerfers are not nevernerf. When something comes along they don't like, they immediately want it nerfed. But then the rest of the time, they stick to this big, oh, you know, nerfing's bad, don't nerf because that led to Destiny 2, and Destiny 2 sucked, and, you know, the vanilla Destiny 2 because the time to kills were too slow, because everything got nerfed, because of all the people whining, and But yet, the funny thing is, in the first part of Destiny 2, what was the dominant gun? It was Mida, multi-tool. And what did I see on every website? On every Reddit comment, on every YouTube video? Nerf Mida, Nerf Mida, Nerf Mida. And I was just wondering, okay, where's the nevernerf crowd now? You know, when it comes to Mida, they all wanted it nerfed. Now, when it comes to the guns they like, which in Destiny is hand cannons, they never want to nerf. And when it comes to general things, they don't want to nerf. But as soon as something they don't approve comes along, like Mida multi-tool, any kind of scout rifle, because the Destiny community, this is speaking generally, not of specific people, this is the vast majority. The Destiny community doesn't like scout rifles, they don't like hunters. So those are the things they want nerfed all the time. And it's funny that, like I said, don't lie to me, because some people will say, like, oh, well, people never wanted Mida nerfed. Yes, they did. I was there. You know, this is something I constantly go back to in life, is I was there. You can't lie to me and say people didn't want Mida nerfed overwhelmingly, because they did. Okay? Period. And so you got all these people now talking about don't nerf anything, don't nerf anything. Where were they when Mida was the strongest gun in Crucible? They were all on YouTube writing comments with 1,000 thumbs up because everybody agreed with them, saying nerf Mida. So don't give me this crap. The nevernerf crowd, to start with, is not... It's like the Democrats in politics. They're so full of it, you know. They say they're about women's rights, but let Sarah Palin come along. They're going to destroy her with every woman slur they can, and call her a hoe and a slut and whatever else they can do. You know, where's their feminism? Where's their accepting women? It's out the door. It's baloney. It's a bunch of bullshit. And it's hypocrisy. It's the same with these nevernerf crowd. They're not, I could always respect this to a certain amount people if they're consistent, but they almost never are in life. And it's the same with this nevernerf crowd. If they were truly like, okay, let's not nerf anything, I would disagree with them, but at least I could respect them. No, they're not. As soon as something they don't like comes along, they want to nerf it. You know, like I said, case in point, just the most recent one was Mida. They wanted to nerf Mida so bad. It was everywhere. Nerf Mida, nerf Mida. You know, if it's a hand cannon, they love it, but if it's a scout rifle, they hate it, and they're nerf it. You know, if hunters have something good, it's nerf it. It was all during D1. It was nerf Arc Strider, what was it called? Yeah, I think it was Arc Blade, whatever. I forget all the names of them. I guess Arc Strider was the subclass and Arc Blade was the super. I don't even remember. Nerf Arc Strider, Nerf Arc Strider. You know, well, wait a minute. You say never nerf, you know? Well, why do you gotta... So if it's something they don't like, they want it nerfed immediately. If it's something they do like, they don't want it nerfed. You know, and it's hypocrisy. So don't say you don't want nerfs, because you do want nerfs. You just want the nerfs that you want, and you don't want the nerfs that you don't want. And what triggered this was Mercury, this guy, and I was listening to his podcast of Mercury, and this guy does detailed breakdowns on the Destiny Reddit and stuff, and he does good work and all that. But he went on a little side tangent when they were talking about shotguns that really pissed me off. He was saying, he's like, oh, it's a vicious cycle. People are going to want Telesto nerfed, and it's going to get nerfed, and blah, blah. It needs to get nerfed, you idiot! See, that's what's wrong with Destiny right now, is there's things that just stand out as way OP, way too powerful, And Bungie's scared to nerf them because they have all these community people that, oh, Destiny nerfs something, oh my god. Get over yourselves, people. Things need nerfing. Deal with it. Because, listen, I just suffered through the worst, like, probably 6 months of Crucible I can remember in Destiny. And that was the last meta right before this Forsaken. Which was, all you could use for a primary was Graviton Lance. I'm sorry, that's all you could use. You could use Vigilance Wing as kind of a, you know, Vigilance Wing was a strong second. That's it. You could only use those two. You know, and I don't care what people say. People lie all the time when you bring up stuff that needs to be nerfed, and they'll say like, "Oh, well, you can counterplay those. Oh, well, you can." Well, yeah, but they're still way more powerful than anything else. That's what's bull about this never nerf crowd baloney. Well, you can counterplay. Well, yeah, you can counterplay if, you know, you get a 1 in 1,000 luck. Yeah. But here's the fact. The gun that needs to be nerfed is too powerful and will win 95% of those situations. Let me give another example while I'm thinking. Remember the Wormhusk Crown for hunters and how hunters were running that like crazy and it was bumping their health? You had all these people on YouTube. I remember I Am Cool Guy, all these other people. Oh, Wormhusk Crown needs a nerf. Where was the never nerf? Where was Mercury's stupid ass never nerf crowd then? You know, where was he saying, don't nerf Wormhusk Crown? Don't nerf it. Nerfs are the wrong idea. Nerfs are bad. You know, it's a vicious cycle. All this baloney they spew. Where were they? Was he out? I don't remember Mercury saying it was so bad that Bungie nerfed Wormhusk Crown. He's sitting on here talking about, oh, it's so bad on Bungie nerfed Full Choke on his latest podcast. It's so bad how Bungie's going to nerf Telesto. Where was he when they nerfed Wormhusk Crown? I didn't hear him saying anything about how bad that was. Because I can tell already from his podcast, I've never listened to his podcast before, and I listened to about 15 minutes of it here. Just now, before I decided to make this rant. And you can tell he's anti-hunter right away, because he was bitching about the Dynamo perk and how, oh, this is going to only help hunter. Well, first of all, if you like buffs all the time, guy, what's your problem with it? You know, let hunters have Dynamo. You know, it's not like Titans don't have unkillable super with Ursa Furiosa, and every class has one-hit melee, but oh gosh, when hunters had a one-hit melee called Backstab that procced once from the front, it procced once from Millennium from the front, everybody was, oh my gosh, and they were all calling for what? Say the word. They all wanted nerfs. Oh my god, Backstab, sometimes it procs from the front. I played Destiny when it almost never procced from the front, and most of the time people thought it did. It was lag. So there was something that occasionally, almost never, would proc from the front and give you a one-hit kill. But it's okay for Titans to have a one-hit kill from the front normally. You know, that's fine. You know, every other kill in Crucible is a Titan smash, and that's fine. But you can't have hunters getting a 1 in 1,000 chance to proc a front stab. Nerf that! Nerf that! And I bet you $50 Mercury's was the first one talking about nerf front stab. You know, he's so full of it. I hate this crap. I hate it. And it makes the game much worse, because here's what happens in the game. Something comes along that's too powerful and makes the game not fun. It takes Bungie forever to fix it because they're afraid to nerf anything because of these bullies in the never nerf community that are the vast majority of Destiny players. Like Mercury's. Okay, like I said, the meta of Graviton Lance and Vigilance Wing was one of the most boring metas I've ever played. I hated it. The only gun you could realistically use was Graviton, and I was so sick of it. And don't give me this, you could use other guns. Yes, there were other guns that were like second tier, and you could do decent with it. But you could not compete with them at a high level. Don't give me that baloney. People always want to say, oh, there's plenty of ways to beat this or whatever. No, there isn't, you know, and you would look at the stats. Like 80% of people were using Graviton Lance. You know, stop your baloney. And the other 20% were using Vigilance Wing. They were the only viable primaries, and it was so boring, and I had to deal with, I don't remember if it was 3 months or 6 months. All because Bungie's afraid to nerf anything. They could have come in a week and gone, okay, Graviton Lance gets a nerf, Vigilance Wing gets a nerf, and I wouldn't have had to suffer 6 months of garbage Crucible. But I did because of the never nerf idiots, and they're at it again. Telesto needs a nerf. Okay, play 5 minutes, and Mercury's admitted to playing Telesto. First of all, Mercury's, you suck then. Because Telesto is garbage, and anytime I see somebody playing that in Crucible, they have my scorn, because we all know it's a joke and it's a cheat. It's a cheat, you know. There's people who they automatically teabag anybody who uses Telesto. I'm pretty much in that crowd. I don't teabag ever, but if I start, it's going to be because of Telesto users. Well, not ever. I will teabag if somebody teabags me first. That's the only situation I do it in. But yeah, it made me so mad, this Mercury's Idiots Rant. And here's another thing. Destiny players love to cheat, and that's what's behind the Never Nerf crowd usually. And that's what's behind Mercury's. And I love how these idiots, every idiot in this game, they want to portray their side as being the skilled one. The skilled one. Skilled. Oh, we're the moral ones because we have skill. No, it's bullshit. Because one of the things Mercury said in his co-host, they tried to do the usual. Play it as, oh, the people who want nerfs don't have skill. Because they said, oh, you can counterplay Telesto, but counterplay is hard. And you have to think about it. You know, therefore, the people who don't want to nerf, or who want to nerf Telesto are lazy and sloths, and they're not skilled. What a lot of bullshit. If you're using like Mercury's is, Telesto, you're lazy. You're not skilled. Period. You know? That's why you're using it, because you want to cheat. You want the unfair advantage of an overpowered. Okay, and if that's not true, then stop using it. Oh no, can't do that. You know, I was arguing with these people on a board about Nova Warp. There's people who will sit there and say Nova Warp's not OP. You can counter Nova Warp. You can kill Nova Warp. It's not bad. First of all, first thing you know, they're all Nova Warp. They all run Nova Warp. You know, that's why they're arguing that. And I told them, I said, look, okay, if it's not OP, then why don't you run Arc Strider, or why don't you run the new, I don't even know what it's called, Spectral Wrath or something, Spectral Blades, I don't know, the new Void Hunter Super that's crap. Why don't you run that instead? Because all these supers are the same, right? Nova Warp's the same as every other super. It's not OP. Why don't you run the Void Hunter Super and see how that goes for you? You know, they wouldn't even do it for 2 minutes because they know that the Hunter Super, the Spectral Wrath, is garbage, and Nova Warp is OP, and that's why they use it. It's the same with Mercury's. If you told Mercury's, he's gonna say, "Oh, Telesto's not OP." Okay, well, why don't you use? Tell you what, buddy. Why don't you ban yourself? And the only thing you're allowed to use is a submachine gun in your slot. Probably the weakest secondary I can think of right now. You can use the submachine gun as your close range gun. That's it. Oh, well, no, that's not what I meant. No, that's not what I'm getting at. Blah, blah. You know, he'd go nuts because submachine guns are a joke compared to Telesto. And he might say, okay, we'll buff submachine guns. But that's not really what he wants. Because if you buff submachine guns to where they're better than Telesto, then he's going to cry about that, you know. Here's the problem. But, okay, first of all, let's establish a couple of things for these Never Nerf idiots. Let's say you have a board, okay? Let me put in an analogy. And you have a nail sticking up out of that board. What is the natural thing to do? It's to hammer down that fucking nail. You know, that's what you do. You don't build up the board, the rest of the board, to reach the nail so that there's no more nails sticking up. Because it's a whole lot more of a pain in the ass to try to build up all that surrounding board than to just hammer the fucking nail down that's sticking out. You see what I'm getting at, this analogy? I know the Never Nerf crowd and Mercury's isn't too bright, but try to follow the analogy. When something is sticking up above the surroundings, you nail it down, you hammer it down. You don't build up the surroundings. Why? Because that's almost an impossible task, you know? You can't build up a board to meet the nail. That'd be a pain in the ass. You know, how would you even do that? Nail another board onto it? You know, it'd be a big, huge hassle, and all you're going to end up with is a 10-foot thick board eventually. You know, when all the easy, nature way to do it is nail down that fucking thing that's sticking out. That's what nerfing is. You have a sandbox and you have an equilibrium, okay? And you have certain things that are going to rise above it, unfortunately. That's the nature of video games, the world, whatever, okay? And what you do, it's easier. You need to drop the easiest thing to do is drop what's sticking out. And that's what we have right now. We have a sandbox that's somewhat balanced. Hand cannons are too strong, by the way. But we have a sandbox that's somewhat balanced, but we have Telesto that's obviously too strong, Nova Warp that's obviously too strong, So what needs to be done here? And there was another one. Oh, Ursa Furiosa, obviously too strong. Nerf those things. But that would make the gameplay so much better, period. But what's happening instead? Oh, Bungie's going to be scared to nerf anything because the never nerf hordes are going to bitch and whine. And here's the thing. Never nerf hordes are no skill. In every case, what they want is a win button. That's what Mercules wants. He wants his win button fusion rifle, the Telesto. That's what he wants. He wants a win button. That's what all the never nerf crowd wants. They want everything buffed to where it's like, I see you, you're dead. I see you, I press a button, you're dead. That's what they want. You know, it's no skill. That's what they want with lower times to kill constantly. That's what they want with constantly buffing. And that's what they'll talk about, this power fantasy baloney. But here's the problem. If you have a power fantasy, you're going to be on the receiving end of that power fantasy just as much as you're on the giving end of it. Okay, if that's fun for you, great. Go play another game, please. You know, that's all I'm asking. Go play Call of Duty. You know what has a really, really low TTK, by the way? Call of Duty. You know what's synonymous with a no-skill game? Oh, the lowest common denominator, beer-drinking, redneck game? Call of Duty. And it has objectively a much faster TTK than Destiny. And it's no skill out the ass. You know? Now, having said all that, I don't agree. I think the TTK in D1 was too long. I agree with that. It was boring. It was team shot meta. It was boring. I think the meta is much more dynamic as it stands currently, with a lower TTK. So, the lower TTK / never nerf crowd, score one for you. You were right, and I admitted on that. But we're now to the point where I think the TTK is in a good place. It's at about the D1 level, and it's fine. Now don't try to ruin it by taking it even lower and by buffing. You know, and again, they're so hypocritical. They're not going to want anything buffed beyond like hand cannons. You know, hand cannons always have to be king. I don't know. It just made me so mad. Mercury's baloney about, oh, Telesto's a counterplay for shotguns and blah, 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 blah. No, what a bunch of shit. It's OP. It has no damage falloff. And he's talking about, you know what beats Telesto? Snipers. No, you know what beats snipers? Telesto. Because it has no damage falloff. And it can fucking map you at 40 meters, you idiot. Yeah, so that's why the never nerf crowd in Destiny is stupid. They're illogical. Like I said, you don't build up a board to get rid of a high-rise nail. You hammer down the nail. That's nature. That's life. You know? And here's, in order to balance, like if you say something is too strong, so we need to buff everything else, right? That's the never nerf idiots, who none of them are game developers, by the way. What is the never nerf crowd? They're a bunch of people on forums who have never developed a game in their life. They don't know anything about it, and they think they do. You know, they think, and I'm always like, look, if you're such a genius about game balancing, Mercules and all these people, go make your incredible game and see how that goes for you. You know, because here's the thing: if Mercules was in charge of any game, you know what he'd be doing? He'd be nerfing everything, because that's how you balance games. You know. I hate to break it to him. Here's another thing I always like to bring up. What's the most popular game in the world, by the way? What's the most popular game in the world? Probably Fortnite, right? Right? What's the game that's taken the world by storm? Oh yeah, Fortnite. Fortnite, right? Fortnite. So, how do they balance Fortnite? Oh yeah, they nerf things. That's what they do in Fortnite. They nerf the shotgun, they nerf the submachine. They nerf things. That's the standard way of balancing things in Fortnite. And it's the most popular game in the world by far. And I don't see everybody complaining about, oh my gosh, they nerfed something. Oh, and Fortnite sucks now because they keep nerfing things. If this crowd was consistent, where's the never nerf crowd in Fortnite? Where's the never nerf crowd in Fortnite? I want to know where they're at. They don't exist. The only place they exist is Destiny. They're fake. They're unnatural, you know. Where's the never nerf crowd in Fortnite? Where's the crowd that's like, oh, I'm going to quit Fortnite because they keep nerfing things? No, they're like, oh, Fortnite is so great. Fortnite is so amazing. You know. So that again proves the never nerf crowd is fake. You know, if there comes a never nerf crowd in Fortnite that bullies the Fortnite creators into not nerfing things constantly and ruining the game as Destiny is being ruined, then okay, I'll accept it. I'll go, okay, well, there's another game too that has a never nerf crowd, and so it's normal. But it's not normal. There is no other game that has a never nerf crowd. There is no nevernerf crowd in Fortnite. And it's the most popular game in the world by far. And let me ask another thing. What's the people? The nevernerf crowd are idiots. But what is the end game? You know, so I like to ask them, like, what's the end game here? Because if you keep buffing things, you're always going to end up with outliers. You're always going to end up with outliers. First of all, buffing everything is, as I said, it's the board analogy. It's much more difficult to buff something, to buff everything, than to nerf one thing. That's nature. That's nature. You know, that's the nail and board analogy. So if you have something that's OP, quote unquote, and you say, well, the solution is to buff everything else. You need to buff primaries. You need to buff this. You need to okay, good luck buffing 1,000 different primaries into balance. You know, why don't you get to work on that, Mercules? Why don't you do it in your spare time for free? You know, you idiot. How are you going to balance 1,000 different pulse rifles and buff them all, and still have some kind of balance where, like, one pulse rifle isn't like 50 times more OP than another? You know, it's going to be a hellacious chore. That's why nature is you nerf. And not only that, but it's a lie that Destiny always nerfed. Because you know what? They buffed a bunch. In Destiny 1, every patch note, go look at the patch notes. They would always come with buffs and nerfs. Buffs and nerfs. Amazing concept that, you know, you'd get, oh, ARs are getting a buff this patch. You know, remember all the buffs ARs got? Maybe they weren't strong enough, whatever. Things got buffed constantly. Constantly. Tons of exotics got buffed. But nobody talks about the buffs, you know? So that's my point here. You establish, it's never going to be perfect. Things are never going to be perfectly balanced. But you have outliers, either to the low or to the high side. It's natural and it's right to round off those outliers. Now, and like I said, first of all, we've established the nevernerf crowd is the no skill crowd. What they want is a win button. What they want is I press a button, the enemy's dead instantly. That's what they want. That's where this is all leading. Because they have no skill, you know. That's what they want in PvE too. They want to be just, oh, power fantasy. I just want to press the button and the boss dies. Oh, I'm so powerful. But they don't realize that ruins the game, because then there's no fun and there's no challenge, and they're idiots. They're idiots, you know. That's why people voted for Barack Obama. Because they have that kind of mind. Let's go to I mean, granted it's not the same thing, but at all. You could reasonably differ on ways to balance Destiny. It's not the same as voting for Obama. But my point is, people are dumb and they don't get, you know, the obvious consequence. If you keep buffing everything, here's what's going to happen. Let's say you buff everything. First of all, you know, are you magic that you think you're going to buff everything and everything's going to be even? There's not going to be outliers? Then you're dumber than I thought you were. So what you're going to do is buff everything. Mercury says primaries need buff. So if you buff primaries, then everything else is probably going to be, you're probably going to be like, oh, well, never, you know, there's no point to having a shotgun anymore, because now my hand cannon kills in 2 shots. So why am I going to run a shotgun when I'm just getting constantly gunned down by these, you know, 0.3 TTK hand cannons that Mercury's wanted? So then you go, okay, well, we got to buff shotguns then. Okay, let's say they don't need 9 meters for a one-hit kill anymore. Now you can one-hit kill out to 15 meters, you know, because they need a buff, because the hand cannon is just eating their lunch, because the hand cannon is killing 2 shots, headshots now. So then you go, oh man, these shotguns are running rampant. They have a 15-meter kill, you know. Everybody's using shotguns, and okay, we're going to have to buff hand cannons again. Now they're killing 1 headshot. You know, that's what you're going to get to. You're going to inevitably, if you balance by buffing, you will inevitably end up with everything is a one-hit kill. I'm sorry, that's the truth. Everything will be a one-hit kill. Your pulse rifle, one-hit kill. One shot of the first shot of the burst kill. That's where you have to go with it, because you're never going to buff things into balance. Never. You're always going to be unbalanced. The 2 questions about it are, how unbalanced are you going to be? And you want to reduce that as much as possible. You're never going to get rid of it. Like I said, this meta, I don't like the hand cannons have been balanced back to the top by all the hand cannon whiners. Like I'm 100% sure Mercury is one of them. I've never heard him say a word about anything, but I'm 100% sure he runs hand cannon. 100% sure. And you know, I don't like the hand cannons where, once again, as always, bounce to the top. But I think this meta is way, way better than the Graviton Lance Vigilance Wing meta. It's way more varied. Okay, so that's the point. There's different metas, and there's different degrees to which they're dominated. Graviton Lance was one of the worst metas I've ever seen in Destiny because it was so dominant. So dominant. And people may go, oh, it wasn't as dominant as this or that. They're full of shit most of the time. There's these idiots out there, for example, that I've argued with on forums that claim it's a pulse rifle meta. I'm like, what are you smoking? Everything in Crucible is a hand cannon. Everything. Okay, there's Bygones. It has its niche at longer range. But if you just look at the stats of any site, Guardian GG, Destiny Tracker, way more people are using Trust, Luna's Howl, Ace of Spades. The only big pulse is Bygones. You put Trust, Luna's Howl, Ace of Spades, Duke Mark 44. All those together, they're like beating pulse usage like 3 or 4 to 1. Or, like I said, you don't even have to look at the stats sites. Just go in fucking Crucible and see what you die to all the time. It's mostly going to be hand cannons, you know? And if you're too dumb to see that, then I don't have time for you. And if you're too dishonest to admit that, then I don't have time for you. That's another thing, maybe another topic for another video, but I keep seeing people say it's a pulse meta, and it just makes me want to strangle them. Like, what are you talking about? It's a hand cannon meta. That's objective, absolute fact. You know, everybody is running Luna's Howl in competitive. Everyone. There are no exceptions. Okay, I'm being a little exaggerated. But literally the percentages are probably 95 to 5. You know, stop. And you're going to say it's a pulse meta? Stop. Stop lying. You know? Man, people are absurd. So yeah, I guess those are my little rant about the never nerfers. Mercury's, who's annoying and stupid, and the hypocrisy of that crowd, the lack of skill of that crowd, the lack of foresight. You know, where does that end? Buffing things all the time. The lack of reality. You know, nobody balances the game by buffing. They don't. They never have. You know, like I said, why don't you, Mercules? Why don't you go make your big first-person shooter, Mercules, and you see how that balancing goes by buffing everything. You know, and if there was such a game, you know, within 5 minutes, what Mercules would be doing is he'd be nerfing everything, because that's how real game development works. And like I said, I'm not saying. I want to clarify that I'm not saying Bungie's perfect on. I'm not saying that always nerf everything. Definitely not saying that. Like I said, you look at the history of Destiny, it's a mix of nerfs and buffs. People say, oh, Bungie only nerfs. That's a lie. You know, they buff a lot. Probably, I think, just as much. You know, for every nerf, you know, look what they just buffed. Granted, as in PvE, they just buff fusions. They just buff swords. You know, they buff shit all the time. Nobody says anything about that. But if they nerf anything, oh, see, there goes Bungie again, ruining the game by nerfing everything, just like they ruined it before. It's just a lie, you know. And like I said, where was? Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. I think one of Bungie's biggest problems is that they overreact on the nerfs, and this goes hand in hand with they don't balance often enough, which I agree with. It takes them forever to balance things, so you don't get the buffs or nerfs as often as you need them. And one consequence of that is like they overreact. Like my favorite example is like Clever Dragon. It used to be dominant. And by the way, the funny thing is, when Clever Dragon's heyday, hand cannons were still better. Okay, I was there. Don't try to lie to me and say they weren't. Hand cannons were still better. The top players, every single one of them, used hand cannons in the Clever Dragon meta. The Clever Dragon was very, very good, but hand cannons were still better. Okay? That's one thing that really bugs me again. Hand cannon people never want to admit the truth. You know, Clever Dragon was heavily used. It's almost to the point where Destiny is a game that where like hand cannons dominate, and that's just expected. So the meta is defined by anything else. You know, if another gun is almost as good as hand cannons, well, that gun needs to be nerfed immediately. Remember all the calls to nerf Clever Dragon, by the way? That's another hypocrisy of these never nerf idiots. Anyways. Yeah, that's all about I got to say basically. Oh yeah, I was just gonna say that like I don't agree that like never buff things, buff things too. You know, it's a mix. You have a general level of TTK, and then you buff and nerf things around it, which I think is in a good place right now. Right now, you know what needs nerfing? Supers. Because you go on Crucible right now, you're going to get killed by supers like crazy. Nerf them, you know? But no, we can't nerf anything, so we're just going to suffer through crappy-ass Crucible. Because the nevernerf crowd has ruined it. Thank you. Appreciate that, nevernerf crowd. Yeah. Don't know what else to say about all that. I'm at the 30-minute mark, so I need to cut off this video. Oh yeah, I just wanted to point out that I don't hate nerfing. I mean, buffing, but the hypocrisy is what sickens me the most. And the hand cannon crowd sickens me the most. And the anti-100 crowd sickens me the most. And buffs are good, you know. The game's always been a combination of buffs and nerfs. So, like, you know what I think needs buffs right now? Sidearms. But you won't catch Mercury talking about that, I guarantee you. Oh, what about sidearms? You know, people hated when they were strong. So give me a break. Give me a break, people. You know, I forgot what I keep hammering on. The point I was trying to make before I leave this video is that I do agree Bungie has a problem with they go too far on their nerfs. They don't just nerf something, they pulverize it. Like, nerf it just a little bit first, Bungie, and see how that goes. But here's the problem with that. Probably one reason they don't do it, because they nerf so infrequently that if you just nerf it a little bit and it's still dominating, first of all, they probably are scared of being called incompetent. Everybody's like, oh, they nerfed it and it didn't even do anything. Well, get over that. You know, accept a little criticism, Bungie. Second thing is they, you know, like I said, they nerf too infrequently. If they know they're not going to, or they balance too infrequently. If they know they're not going to have another balance patch for 6 months or 3 months even, they know that whatever they do, if they just nerf, like let's say Clever Dragon is supposedly too strong. It never was, but let's say it was. If they nerf it too little, then they know they have to live with another 3 months of it dominating. Rather than if they had frequent patches, they could just go, okay, if we nerf it too little, in 2 weeks we're going to hit it again, you know. So that's that's my point. I do agree they overreact and they tend to nerf stuff into the ground. I'll agree with that, and they should stop that. They should take it, you know, just nerf it a little at first and see how that goes. A little more, see how that goes. And that goes in hand with they need more frequent balance updates. Anyways, thanks for listening to my video.